Well, good morning. Thank you for joining the North Texas ISSA September monthly Lunch and Learn. Today we have our sponsor, Cyber Reason, bringing to us a special guest, Cecil Pineda. He is a CISSP, CISM, and CIPP for privacy, coming from Critical Start. So without further ado, let's get started. So the agenda today is going to be the welcome and announcements, followed by a message from our sponsor, Cyber Reason, and Cecil will present his special topic of the day. We will encourage some member participation in Q&A. That'll be a moderated session. Carrie Chisholm will be moderating that and feeding your questions to the speaker. And job opportunities from the attendees and winners and wrap up. The 2020 board. 2020 is fastly coming to a close, believe it or not. It's been a wild year with COVID-19 interrupting a lot of our normal flow. But I do want to thank the board members here. Thank you all for your support of the folks who are serving. And if you are interested in becoming a member or serving the board, then please let us know that, as our nominations for candidates will be arriving shortly. We have Chad and Kyle from Cyber Reason here today, who will speak a little bit more as we get closer to the end of the announcements. I'd like to welcome our new members. If you are a new member, could you raise your hand and let us know? Maybe we can give you a chance to introduce yourselves, or a guest. Curtis Berger. Carrie, do you see this?
I see the hand raised. Okay, Curtis, you're now allowed to talk.
No, we can't hear you if you're speaking, Curtis.
Oh, actually, I clicked on Curtis's link. Curtis is also on the call. I'm Curtis's boss. I'm the CISO of IACA, and I'm also the current president of the Silicon Valley chapter of the ISSA. My name is Edward Fry.
Nice to meet you, Edward. Thanks for joining us today.
Mansoor, your hand is raised. You're allowed to talk.
Hi, good morning. Thanks for allowing us the opportunity to join. Appreciate it. Actually, this is my second meeting, I believe, that I've joined as a guest. I'm a employee at Citigroup. I've been here about 5.5 years doing IT audit, and I've been in the IT audit arena for close to 30 years. Thanks.
Thank you for joining and for representing Citigroup. It looks like there's one more, Carrie.
Rob, you've been unmuted.
Hey, thank you. My name is Rob Day. I think this is the second one I've sat in and listened to as a guest as well. I am with Rapid7, and I am trying to stay in the know and get to know some security folks in the DFW area. And ideally, I'd like to be able to provide some guest speakers when the opportunities arise.
Thanks, Rob. Thanks so much for that participation. I think we have a mutual college buddy. And I think that you are going to contribute to our annual conference. So welcome aboard. Thanks for being so active early on. It looks like we have one more. Is that? No, that's still Rob's hand raised. Okay. All right, so if there are no more new members or special guests who would like to nominate themselves, let's move on to the next section. And this is joining. So if you're not a member, we do encourage you to be a member, to contribute to our website, to our Twitter feeds, but also to be a speaker, to be a mentor. and also to gain CPEs for yourself. The networking that we'd like to provide under normal circumstances is so much more rich when we're meeting in Maggiano's. So in the interim, we are looking for ways to combat that distance. We still have plans for an annual gathering at the end of the year. What that looks like is still being determined, but as a member, you will be welcome to participate in a number of these things. A free subscription to the ISSA journal that has a lot of content that I go back to throughout the months, and I leave them back here on a shelf just to go to. There's a lot here to be had, so please join ISSA and click on the local chapter for North Texas as a member to join our chapter as well. Any questions about membership can be directed to Carrie Chisholm, who is our moderator today. Thank you, Carrie. And please refer a friend if you are already a veteran with North Texas ISSA. We'll hold off the jobs and hiring for the end, but I do want to encourage the attendees here to gather those. If you have something from your company, or if you are a hiring manager, then please let us know this at the end of our presentation today. Our upcoming events will be the CSC8 conference. The date and deadline for speakers was yesterday. I think it was yesterday, right, Sean? The 15th. We may have a few more slots, so if you are still interested, then please send those forward. The tracks can be found on our website or on our Twitter or LinkedIn pages. Actually, and so here are the content tracks for your convenience as well. Cloud, application, and IoT. This not only encompasses those three words there, but also in IoT, there's SCADA, ICS, connected and autonomous vehicles, robotics. The second one is as digital forensics and incident response. A lot of you work on teams and are well-versed in that. We'd love to hear your insight, especially a lot of the remediation and mitigation from the nation state and COVID-related attacks that have happened recently. That feeds right into bullet 3, the purple team is what I like to call it. Purple team tools, red team and blue team tools, and growing your career in cybersecurity. This touches on those who are nascent or would like to become cybersecurity professionals if you are a student, and even if you are a mid or upper level manager or professional in cybersecurity looking to bridge the gap or make that next hurdle. And also the 5th, building highly effective security programs. If you are a leader or part of a team in a SOC or a CISO or CIO that happens to have a security remit, then please contribute there or seek to contribute and participate in that track as well. Outreach for students is still ongoing. We're looking for mentors and for speakers, not only for college speakers and junior college, speakers for college and junior colleges, but also for high school. And if we can get down to that middle school level in the next year for the end of 2020 and 2021, we'd love to create wins for the next generation. So please consider that. And our survey, the survey is still up at the same site that you know and love. The ticket entry, we get a lot of questions about this every month. You do not need to put anything in the ticket entry if you are using the web browser. I've heard from phone, it may require a character, but from a web browser, you should be able to submit it and with no problems. So please do so. If you are interested in any of the events that we've covered, becoming a board member, serving as an outreach or mentor, contributing to CSC8 as a volunteer, a speaker, or even as a sponsor, there are several opportunities still available, but they are becoming more and more limited by the day. So with that, I'll hand this over to Chad, who is from Cyber Reason, to speak a little bit about what they do.
Lonnie, thank you so much. I really appreciate all the work you do pulling us all together so we can collaborate and share ideas. So I'll do a quick introduction of who Cyber Reason is, if you're not familiar with us, and then I will introduce our speaker today, Cecil Pineda. So for those of you who don't know, Cybereason is an industry leader in the endpoint protection, detection, and response space. Pardon me. We offer a comprehensive platform that covers with a single console and a single lightweight agent all the traditional endpoints that we've been protecting over the years, servers, various flavors, desktop, laptops, and we've expanded that to also include the next generation of productivity devices, devices running iOS, such as iPad, iPhone, and Android. So it truly is a comprehensive solution. And really how I decided to present Cybereason to you today was really in terms of what our clients are identifying as the problem statements that 2020 is posing to us all, and then the value they're deriving from Cybereason solutions. In no particular order, the 5 top issues of 2020 that we're seeing are reduced staff and skill gaps for the staff that we do have, reduced and declining budgets, maintaining collaboration across a remote work from home environment, and then planning and future-proofing our security and technology as we adapt to a lot of the new ways that we're working. And then lastly, scaling both up and down, right, as we deal with the unfortunate reductions in staff, and then also the opportunities provided today around acquisitions, mergers, et cetera. You know, how do we accomplish that as quickly and painlessly as possible? And the value statements that our clients are giving us regarding our platform is a completeness of data and correlation. So we're asking 8 million questions a second on each endpoint, and then we're using machine learning, decision-making, and AI to correlate all of that data, not just for an endpoint, but across the entire environment. We also allow our clients to scale, having one analyst capable of managing 200,000 endpoints. We offer a syntax-free query engine in natural language and an intuitive UI that allows for leveling up our security analysts and giving organizations time to actively go out and threat hunt. And again, time to respond, leveraging AI and machine learning to correlate all that data and provide it to an analyst in a single notification. So not relying on the parsing of logs and alerts from a SIEM. And then again, as I mentioned previously, one single platform to manage traditional and mobile OSs. And there is no deviation from how those are managed. So there's a very, very fast time to value, and you don't have to teach analysts how to manage different platforms differently. So those are just some of the opportunity or problem statements that we're seeing in 2020 and some of the value statements that we're hearing from our clients. So we'd love to talk to you more. If you have additional questions, please feel free to reach out to us. We'd love to engage you. And I'm really honored to introduce a man I've worked with previously and one I call a friend, Cecil. Cecil, for those of you that don't know him, is a longtime thought leader in the DFW Metroplex around technology, security, privacy, and across his career, he's been a leader at DFW Airport, CVS, TXU, GameStop, and Boeing, to name but a few. And currently, as Lonnie mentioned, he is working with Critical Start, guiding security and working with organizations just like yours, building out security programs, privacy programs, technology programs, and even acting as a virtual CISO when needed. And I want to remind you all, please be sure and check out his video blogs and posts at Cecil the CISO. So with no further ado, I am going to pass it over to Cecil.
Hey guys, Chad, thank you so much. Let me just turn on my camera. Lonnie, can I turn my camera on? It says that you can't start your video because the host has stopped it.
You should be able to. Let's see here.
Yeah.
Is it just your video or your sharing ability?
Oh, let me check the. Oh, you cannot share screen while the other participant is sharing.
All right.
Okay.
There you go. Sorry about that.
Oh, it's okay. And video is. Can you see my screen, guys?
Yes.
Yeah, and my video won't turn on, but let me see. Start video. Yeah. It says that the host has stopped. Anyway.
Okay, we'll work on that in the background. Sorry.
Yeah, no worries, guys. And you know, I slept at the early morning, so I don't think you want to see me. By the way, I was working you know, really late, working a key project. But anyway, guys, thank you, Lonnie, Chad, and everyone at ISSA for inviting me. And I enjoy doing this. Unfortunately, I always like doing this in person. For some reason, I'll be honest with you guys. I've spoken to maybe 700 people in the audience, and I was a little nervous. I took a couple of shots of vodka, but for some reason, because I don't see you guys, I feel like I'm super nervous right now, but I'm hopefully, maybe I took too much coffee this morning. I'll go over my presentation. Lonnie told me yesterday, Cecil, you got 30 slides. I don't know if you can cover it. So I'm going to make sure that we're going to cover everything. We're going to skip some slides that are not too important. And please let me know if you have any questions. Stop me. I always talk too much, especially when I'm nervous. So please, you know, let me know if you have anything. I'll try to, you know, probably Lonnie or someone, you know, stop me from talking when there's some questions, okay? Okay.
All right, fair enough.
Yeah, so before we begin, again, 29 slides. I'm gonna breeze through them. I'm gonna cover as much as I can. I'm Cecil Pineda. I'm with Critical Start, used to be from DFW Airport, work in a lot of companies, work at the Big Four. Very, you know, honored to be here presenting to you guys. Many years working at critical infrastructure organizations and serving and doing audits and assessments on critical infrastructure. I think I was able to gather a lot of knowledge and experience along the way. I'm not going to mention any names, of course, to protect the identities of the innocent, but hey, would love to help as much as I can. I'm pretty sure there's a lot of you guys on the call today who are working or previously working or probably going to work for a critical infrastructure organization. This is the agenda. Before I start again, English is my second language. Sometimes I may mispronounce names. Please, you know, forgive me. English is my second language. And second, yeah, I apologize for my accent. I'll be sneezing in a couple of times. Maybe today my allergy is not, you know, helping. So critical infrastructure. For many years, we all know that there are 16 critical infrastructure sectors, and recently the electoral system, the election infrastructure subsector has been added. So click this link when you get the slides to give you additional context on that area. I think, yeah, I may have a couple of slides here later showing you, you know, why the election system is a critical infrastructure. But obviously, all of these things, you could see all these sectors, they're really critical to the, you know, not just for the government, but for every citizen's safety and operation of services, basic services to all the citizens. 10 years ago, I started in security a long time ago, and 20 years now, and every year you always see topics or news about critical infrastructure. And if you will see this, you know, 10 years ago, Stuxnet, you know, went into the, you know, the limelight. I hope some of you have watched the Netflix 0 Days. I really highly recommend it, you know, to give you a background on what happened to, to the, how Stuxnet affected, Iranians, Bushehr nuclear plant. Now, moving forward, guys, 10 years, if you will notice, this is 10 years ago. Do you notice any change? It's almost the same. And there are many reasons why our critical infrastructure has not really moved forward. In terms of comparing IT security to OT security is lagging behind IT security. A lot of the investments, a lot of the security technology tools are more geared towards protecting the traditional IT environment. Our OT environment are really lagging because there is no standard. There is very limited regulations. I'm going to touch on that very sensitive topic. When I was working at a client, at a critical infrastructure, one of the things I always complain is the lack of regulations, the lack of control of the industry and the government towards critical infrastructure. No one's really clamping down on risks and compliance with respect to critical infrastructure. One time I spoke to a DHS person who was doing an assessment on the environment. I asked him, hey, why would you not enforce, why would DHS not enforce all these security controls to most of the critical infrastructure? And they said, Cecil, our DHS was designed as an oversight, not as a regulatory body. And I have a couple of screenshots later to show you that there is very limited oversight. Unlike, PCI, for example, I work in an organization where we are mandated with PCI. We have to pay fines until we get to that, we get compliant. We had to pay the price of not being compliant. And it's not easy, to maintain compliance for PCI. I'm hoping that in the critical infrastructure side, I really hope that there's a sweeping regulations that will enforce critical infrastructure to follow standards. So, so what has changed over the last 10 years? 5G is going to change a lot. Not many IoTs and OTs are into 5G, but we know many organizations are starting to look into smart cities, smarter connectivity. So 5G is going to change a lot in the next few years. We all know in the next 5 years, there are 10 billion IoTs. There will be 25 billion IoTs, in 2025. If you've been reading the news, for the first time, I heard a really good news that a bipartisan law is being promoted now to have an IoT security standard. So people from both parties are now, I think this news came out 2 days ago. If you can look it up, IoT standard, it's looking good. We're starting to have a standard, on all these technologies that are really non-traditional. More secure, more connected devices. I mentioned to you $25 billion, 25 billion devices. OT, I don't know, millions of devices across the world. In one of the organizations that I work for, we haven't really discovered everything, but the last time we were doing asset discovery, there were already 40,000 devices. When I started working there, they told me there's only 8 to 12,000 devices. Now, as we go on in our discovery, we later found out we haven't even finished the discovery yet, and there were already 40,000 something devices. So you could see a lot of devices are not the traditional IT devices. A lot of them are OT, SCADA, IoT devices. There are more security tools today, but as I mentioned earlier, a lot of these tools are designed for traditional IT. There are new products now designed to protect SCADA, OT devices, but a lot of these tools are still in their infancy. They're still maturing to a stage that they're not yet there to fully protect the OT environment. More security people today, however, they're also in the IT side, information security side, cyber security side. There's very limited personnel in the OT side, in the critical infrastructure operational technology side. So there are more security services provided, but again, there's really more designed for the IT environment. So organizations are working harder to combat these threats, but still it's not enough. We're always few steps, we're really behind against these bad guys. So here are the things that we cannot control. Cyber threats targeting critical infrastructure. Malware, I don't want to spend a lot of time. These are the things that really impact us. Now, if you look at the threats targeting critical infrastructure, their motivation is primarily disruption and chaos. It's not really data or financial reason. However, there are some that are still focused on, stealing money, stealing information, but a lot of the attacks against critical infrastructure is designed to cause chaos and disruption. So here are the things we can control, and I want to spend a lot of this. The rest of my slides, most of these are geared towards, what can we do to fix this problem? So here are some of them: complexity of the infrastructure. Let me just jump to the next slide because I don't want, these are just repeating. Many of the OT, in critical infrastructure out there, there's very limited delineation between the IT and the OT infrastructure. They share the same network. They may have some access control or firewall, but it's easy to navigate if you want to go through one of those IP addresses or go to a several with other subnets. With a little creativity, you'll be probably able to navigate around the network. This is the difficulty with OT security. This is a lot of these OT protocols are now designed to work on the Ethernet or IP protocols. So you have seen probably Modbus or different types of protocols that run over TCP/IP. So now what happens is they're connected on the same network, and unfortunately, that if they're in the same network, there's a very high likelihood that attackers may be able to navigate to the other part of your environment. I picked this device, this Siemens, because it was one of the I saw one of these devices in one of our security assessments, and we look at the firmware, and we saw that it was never been patched. And just a quick look at the vulnerability database, and I just typed in the model number, and again there are 4 vulnerabilities, and if you could see the numbers, 2 of them are rated as high or critical. They're above 7, CVS S7. So a lot of these devices that are in the OT side are not developed with security in mind. They're developed for resiliency. They're developed for operations resiliency. They're really not designed for security. Now, not all of these devices are not secure. I can tell you a lot of, especially the last 5 to 10 years, a lot of these manufacturers have put additional access control, additional controls to, to prevent it from being hacked. Again, but the lack of standards out there is limiting the, the security possibility of a lot of these devices. This is an example. 3 days, 4 days ago, I went to Indeed, and I looked for an OT or SCADA security opening, and I found this job description, and I called the company. I actually emailed them and asked them for, this is a lot of responsibility. Unfortunately, our friends over the side in the OT side compared to the IT side, the salary gap is major. It's almost $50,000. As you could see, I compared here, I borrowed an image from Google here, comparing the responsibilities of the OT security side, or the OT side and the IT side. Again, there's a lot of responsibilities on both sides, but if you look at the pay standard today, if I am an aspiring cybersecurity guy and I want to protect our OT infrastructure, I'll probably just stay in the IT side because I don't want to get less money for the same level of work and, and less money. And unfortunately, hopefully that things will change. One of the things I can also share to you, when I was working at a company at the critical infrastructure, the OT side, they really hate us from the IT side. They don't really like to talk to us. It's so difficult to work with them when they, even though obviously we have to work together, but for some reason, when you knock on their door, send them an email, you don't hear from them quickly because they don't really like to be working with IT. I'm pretty sure you've seen that in some places, but I've seen it in many places. Unfortunately, that's a difficulty. IT and OT needs to be working together as partners. Well, this is probably one of the, in the IT world, this is always a problem. And unfortunately, in the OT world, in the critical infrastructure world, this 150 days is probably very high for most people. Patching critical systems is very, especially for mission critical systems that's running 24/7. You cannot just turn it off. You cannot turn off. A lot of these systems may not have any redundancy. So patching, applying updates to firmwares is really, really difficult. And also I found a white paper a few days ago while researching to present this presentation, and some security researchers, they believe that 15 to 25% of the patches and fixes are actually incorrect. And then we have those legacy devices. If you go to your manufacturing side, you look at some of your devices, I won't be surprised if you see some devices from the 1990s or early 2000s that are still running today. So again, if patching is to be done, everyone needs to be on board and, helping each other. Excuse me, guys. You will not believe me. I only took this picture from Google, but I've visited many data centers and common rooms and closets, cabinets, and I can tell you, I've seen much worse than this in a critical infrastructure environment. They're like laundry, lines, clothes lines. I was walking through that room and there were cables going from one switch to the next, and it was really remarkable because if I trip on one of those, I'm pretty sure something's gonna break. So, mixing IT and OT is not okay. You have to segment, you have to make sure that there's a plan. A lot of these OT devices have a way to be contacted, what we call control points. So limit those access and control points to those devices. Now, a lot of these devices, we don't know much about what's inside. And that's really a problem. When you're presented with a small device like the ones I just presented a few days ago, a few slides ago, it's really difficult to know what operating system is running on them, what type of application is running on them, what data. Even if you open the manual, there's not much. On the manual is just how you operate it, and hey, here's a number you can call. It is very difficult. So, unlike in our IT environment, almost every facet of our IT tools, every part of our IT environment, there are security tools that are designed to protect those devices. Unfortunately, in the OT side, we don't have a lot of those security tools designed for them. Now, this is one of the biggest problem. Do you know why it took me 3 months or about 10 weeks to gather data from the other side? If you don't have the right asset discovery tools. Remember, not all asset discovery tools will work in all environments, because the OT environment is very sensitive, and you just cannot scan devices there. You know, people are going to be screaming because you could break the system down, you could set off an alarm, so you can't scan those devices. So what we do is we work with our OT partners and started developing the inventory. It took us 10 weeks to gather all these 40,000 devices. You know, today with an automated tools, I'm pretty sure it could be done in hours or maybe a few days. But when I was doing this with, you know, with another company, it took us weeks before we were able to have. Now, this is the challenge also. Once you're done discovering all these assets and you put them in a database or a spreadsheet, the moment you're finished, your data is no longer, accurate, because a lot of new devices are introduced to the environment, and if it's in the OT side, they don't really like to inform IT side, hey, we're putting new devices here. Sometimes the best we could do is, hey, we just need a block of IP addresses and we need to, you know, set up some devices here. They don't really give you enough information. So it's really a problem, you know, working with, our OT partners. Again, I mentioned earlier, you see this one, I took a screenshot of the, the designate. This is a white paper that is highlighted on my first few slides. There's a link, there's a white paper or an article, and I took this screenshot. You could see DHS doesn't have regulatory authority over electoral infrastructure subsector. However, there are 5 agencies with significant role, but again, there's no really oversight. Here's another screenshot I took from the CISA website. You know, look at that. The planning guide and templates are voluntary tools to help jurisdictions effectively recognize and respond to potential incidents. You know, you could see it's voluntary. There's no regulatory authority. It's only oversight. That is really one of the key problems why we're not really moving forward. Be able to protect our OT, our critical infrastructure better than it should be. So, Lonnie, I'm doing well on time. I think so.
I think you're fine.
Okay, thank you, Lonnie. When I started working, my second time as a CISO, my first time, that's a good story to tell, but for another session. My second time and my first week there, I started taking notes. I have a paper, I have a notebook, and I started asking, hey, do we have a risk register? Hey, what are the compliance regulations that we have to meet? And one of my guys said, hey, Cecil, we need to make sure that we meet the CGs. And, coming from the private sector, we don't even know CGs. So I had to Google it, and criminal justice information system. And because our police have access to the criminal database. So I was writing this notebook, and my first week there, my notebook has already filled up with all the things, my risks, my, all the tools that we have, all the tools we don't have. We don't even have a risk register. We have some policies, but the policies have been developed like 5-10 years ago. So I was trying to develop a checklist. And you know what I did? That was my first time being a CISO of a critical infrastructure. Instead of doing my own research or, do it on my own, I called my counterparts at the other critical infrastructure. I called my friends there. They actually don't know me, and now we've become friends. I called each one of them. I said, hey, Tim, could you help me how to do my job? It's my first time being here. I didn't realize the gravity and scope and the breadth and the depth of my, my challenges. I called the other places as well. And, 2 weeks, 3 weeks later, I got like 4 advisors assisting me on addressing many of these things. So here is a really nice graphic capturing all the other things. But in reality, it's going to be another session to tell you how I started. Actually presented a few years ago what are those things that are on my notebook. And actually I still have that notebook until today. Preparing for this presentation, what were the things that and one of those biggest problem was the OT environment. There's a large unknowns in my environment that I have no control of. I get cameras, I get a water pump station, an electric substation, and I got, several terminals. So there's so many things I have to take into account, and I have no idea what to do. And the first thing I did is call the people who are experts. So anyway, I think I developed an 8-slide deck specifically for this presentation. There's so many things to talk about here on where to start. There's hundreds of ways for CISOs or managers, directors on how to protect their critical infrastructure. So I created a very short list here. I'm pretty sure you'll have access to this presentation after this. As I mentioned earlier, the first thing is you need to look at your assets. It is very important that you know what are the devices that you have, all the networks. Now, it is not enough for you to know those devices. You need to know what are the devices for, who owns the data, what applications are using. It is very important to you to understand the dependencies and the services, the business services that that particular device supports. So, this is a lot of work. Yesterday, I was talking to a CISO of a large city, and the CISO said, I told him, he asked me, Cecil, where do I start? You know what I did? I just sent this presentation to him, and we went through step 1. So yesterday I had a mini practice going through this presentation, and we started working on this, and he said, Cecil, yeah, I need to start understanding my assets. I don't really have a good idea what IT and OT assets I have in my environment. So you gotta start, these are all things that, look at your compliance obligations, look at your roles and responsibilities, look at third parties, and, I would do a gap assessment or security assessment. If you have no budget hiring a third party, you could certainly, there's so many articles, so many guidance available online to help you understand your risk and your gaps. Once you've identified your risk and gaps, make sure you document your findings in a GRC tool if you have one, or a spreadsheet that you can call a risk register. And remember, all of these findings, you don't have to fix all of them. You have to take into account the risk treatment plan. What is really the cost of addressing the risk? Not all risk, even a critical risk. If you have a critical risk that needs to be addressed, however, the cost of fixing that risk is 10 times the cost of the actual business or asset that you're trying to protect, you just need to document it and accept the risk. There are other options. There's compensating controls. There are security tools to address them. So you want to make sure that once you have all your risk, you have to do a really, risk analysis is important because you have a way of measuring risk. But the most important thing for me is really the risk treatment process. You gotta analyze how you want to treat that risk. If it's not worth it, don't treat it. Put it at the back burner, put compensating control, accept the risk, or, those kind of things. There's a lot of ways you could address risks. And then once you have a good view of all your risks that you want to develop, you want to mitigate, you have to create a roadmap. And of course, you have to communicate to your senior leadership. As I mentioned to you, discovery is really important. Once you have your discovery, you gotta develop what do you call this? Your documentation. You gotta put it in a CMDB. Things change. Once someone connects something in your network, it's good that they inform you, but it's better when your tools can actually see those devices attached to the network. So it is very important that when those devices connect to your network, you get a, hey, there's a Chromebook. Quick story, a year ago, someone added a Chromebook, the CEO, attached a Chromebook on the network, and, and the security manager said, hey, sir, by the way, just want to let you know, we're not allowing, but, we saw a Chromebook, just imagine that the CEO, instead of being mad, is like, oh, appreciate that. He actually felt good that anything that's being connected to their network is being reported back to their, to their console. So now, this is easier said than done, and I'm gonna strike out the word support here. I'm gonna explain to you why you don't need leadership support. I think you need your leadership to own it. It's not support. Leadership needs to own cybersecurity. And a few years ago, I was working with this company, and I told them, hey, I gotta leave, and I gotta join. I got an offer, and I need to join. And the CEO and the CFO came to me and, CISO, we can't let you go. We want you to stay. We're gonna counter. And I told them, no, I made up my mind. I want to go. And don't worry, I prepared everything. I wrote our security program handbook. Whoever is going to replace me will be able to start running on day one. A lot of the things we need to do, I've created a calendar of all our activities. I've informed all our partners. So I was ready to go. And my CFO asked me, and you don't hear a CFO tell you this, hey, I will kneel in front of you and just for you to stay, tell me what. And I told them, hey, I told him, Mr. CFO, I have really made up my mind. You're in a good place right now. The next person will be able to make it a lot better. And I told him, I didn't do anything extraordinary. I followed the plan. I executed the plan. I partnered with everyone. And what really made a difference is the two of you, the CFO and the CEO. My first 3 months was the hardest part of my life there. I went from 170 pounds to 152 pounds. I told my wife it's the best weight loss program I've done in a long time. I was not eating well. I couldn't sleep well. 3 months of, I almost left the organization, but as it started going well. And that point when it started going well is when my CEO and my CFO started supporting me more. Now, I didn't get their support overnight. It took me 3 months to communicate to them in business terms, not in technical terms, why we need security. I started showing them metrics. Even showed them some of the scorecards, security benchmarks of other organizations similar to us. And I told them, look where they are and where we are. We don't want to be the next company in the headlines of Krebs. And I can tell you in 3 or 4 months, my CEO and my CFO are all behind me and leading the way. They are in every opportunity they can talk about cybersecurity, they will. In our town hall meetings, the first thing they're going to ask, where is Cecil here? And the first 5 minutes, they're going to talk about cybersecurity in our town hall meeting. So when I was leaving that organization, I told my CEO and my CFO, you are the ones who made this possible. I just executed it. Your leadership made it where we are right now. So that's why I scratch out the word support, because support is not enough. Leadership needs to own cybersecurity, IT and OT. So one of the things I want to share to you is the last line, the last 2 lines. When you present, when you talk to your leadership, don't show them vulnerabilities. Don't show them, share to them 2 or 3 slides that they will remember when they go home, when they're playing golf. Show them graphics, information that will reverberate in their mind. Lastly, I think one of the best things that I've learned the last 20 years in cybersecurity is I've met so many successful CISOs. And the only the first thing that comes to my mind, the common denominator among those guys, all of them are very good storytellers. You know, they would not be able to explain how a firewall works, but they know how to communicate technical risk, convert it to a business risk to their management. I can tell you, 10 years ago, 3 of them helped me. And these 3 CISOs today, I still give back to them whenever I can. They helped me grow into where I am. And that's why I still help a bunch of guys today, because I want to give back to, to the upcoming, group of CISOs in the future. So, establish partnerships. This is important. I want to emphasize this. When I spoke to the OT security side, the OT side, operational side, I don't want to govern you. I just want to give you guidance, and I want you to be the steward, the owners of this environment. Same thing with PCI. I want to share this good story because it gives me a smile every day whenever I share this story. 8 years, we've always been failing PCI at that organization. Every year we have to pay fines, and we have to, send them excuse letters that, hey, we're working on it. We're still getting there. Our controls are improving. We got tired of failing, and I asked the history about why we failed. And, one of the things that struck me is that we failed because we did not partner with finance. Finance and operations, they control the credit card transactions, the applications. You know what I did? I went knocking on the CFO's, not the CFO, the head of finance. And I told him, I want this to be successful. I want us to comply. I want us to be secure. I want to partner with you. And I told him, from now on, I'm not going to own PCI. You're going to own PCI. And that was the point that we started making improvements. Just imagine, 4 months later, we got compliant with PCI. That is really, just imagine, 8 years we were failing. And then 4 months later, after we partnered, we were able to meet PCI compliance, which is really, really, that's a story. Risk, guys, I know you love owning things. I like to own things as well. Cyber risk, that is your area. But the problem with cyber risk, sometimes it doesn't boil up beyond their CIO. It just stays to the CIO level. My suggestions for you guys, if you have an internal audit or an enterprise risk management department, remember, cyber risk falls under enterprise risk management. You know what I did? I went to the VP of enterprise risk management and told him, I want my risk to boil up to the board, to the executive level. I don't want to go behind my CIO's back. However, you are the enterprise risk management team of the company. I want you to know that these are my cyber risks. From there on, I was able to get the money I need, the budget I'm looking for. I got visibility across my organization because I started partnering with different groups in the organization. Then you score, of course. Once you have your roadmap, you roll out. Now, I would really ask you, focus on the most critical risk impacting the most critical assets. Always focus on that. Now, if your manufacturing or your plants are the lifeblood of your company, I want you to make sure that they're appropriately protected. So, the last item there, for things you cannot fix right away, there are ways. You just cannot, you cannot just accept the risk. Apply some compensating control, collect some logs, or do some, some checks on the communications towards that network or something else. Work with the manufacturer. If you have a bunch of OT devices in your network, call the manufacturers and ask them for, hey, is there anything I can do to harden these devices? So anyway, now, securing your infrastructure is not complete if you don't have the shiny tools, and visibility is key. So I don't want to spend time on this. I want to get to my, we still have about 6 slides left. So ongoing maintenance. So there's a lot here: patching, continuous process improvements, applying technical, compensating roles, performing regular audits and assessments, getting third-party validation services is really, really important as well. So I really, getting a third party, I know it's expensive. There's so many parties. Critical Start is one of them. There's maybe 100 companies that you can call today. Hey, we want someone to validate our security controls. Hey, come here and do an audit. I think this is my last recommendation. Remember, it will happen. It's just, you don't know. It could be happening today as we speak. It may have happened a few weeks ago. You just don't know. It's gonna happen, and it's very important that you partner with your your key departments in other organizations, OT, finance, HR. You partner with everyone, put them in one table. Since maybe in the last 5 years, I've been in maybe 20 to 25, maybe even 30 tabletops. It is, they always tell me that, our goal for those tabletops are, let's practice our contingency plan, our incident response plan, our data breach plan. I always tell this, after the first time tabletop, I always see it gives me a smile, a big smile when people are talking. Yesterday or 2 days ago, I had a call about the importance of tabletop. And I told this person, the relationship you build on those tabletops are the most important. When something happens, remember, when something happens, no one opens the IR plan or the contingency plan or the data breach plan. No one opens that because there's no time. So remember, that relationship, that dynamics, that working dynamics between different groups is the most important. So anyway, involve everyone. What I'm saying is to be prepared if something happens. Final notes. Critical infrastructure is really challenging to secure that. There's really no shortcut. There's so many devices, so much complex networks. Every company is different. Some companies, I want to give them credit. They have done a really good job securing their environment. There are still a lot of companies out there, critical infrastructure organization that are a long way, especially in the government side, because in government's limited budget, it takes 6 months to buy something, and it's very difficult. You can protect everything, just minimize impact and risk wherever you can, and finally establish partnerships. I'm hoping some of you have heard of the Section 889B compliance of the National Defense Authorization Act, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, I forgot what NDAA means. So there's a compliance requirement if you're working with government agencies, effective August 13. Last month, any equipment from these companies. So this is really the challenge here. The last statement, and subsidiaries. One of these has 36 subsidiaries developing chips, OT, SCADA equipment. It is very difficult to comply, but this is a regulation. You have to make sure that all of these devices and their subsidiaries are not in your environment if you're, working with the government. So applies to companies providing equipment, services, any industry sector, anything. Remember, even companies that you use for your company, you have to, there's a document that you could actually click here, and the entire regulation is stated there. Valuable resources, there's a lot. So but these 4 items are probably 4 of my favorites. The other one costs some money. There's an ICS Security Fundamentals course from Info. I'm not affiliated, with them. I don't get credits for them, but there's several resources. It's a growing, maturing area. but you know, it's very promising. So, Lonnie,
Cecil, you
Thank you
ready
so
to
much.
move into Q&A?
yeah.
Do you want to try your video again? I think we've got it fixed. Oh, there you are.
I
Yeah.
think it's working there.
All right, good.
Hey guys.
So we do have a question submitted here. What are your top 3 metrics you would share with your CEO, CFO?
Well, it's a very good question. I've worked with so many CEOs, so they're really different. Some of them, they want the Cecil, don't sugarcoat it. Send me what I need to know and I want to help you. Some of the CEOs I've worked for, probably my top 3, for CEOs who are really wanting to know, I would say I'm gonna put risk first. If for people who are maintaining a risk register, I wanna go and get the highest risk items and I wanna report to them. Now, I don't wanna stop there. I wanna go and how would it impact the organization reputationally, financially, operationally? I wanna present that. Second, you know, there's probably one of the things I would say our readiness in terms of an incident. One of the things I really enjoy doing is working with CEOs and executives when, you know, a few years ago, someone asked me, Cecil, this morning I woke up with this WannaCry news on, are we ready? Are we? So, you know, I would present things that could impact us as well as a third. So first, I would say risk. Second, our incident preparedness. Third, I would say things that could impact us, you know, down the road if we don't do anything. Now, there are some, when I work with some CFOs, they don't really, they would want me to look at a scorecard. I don't know if some of you have seen my scorecard. I've developed a scoring mechanism where I would pick maybe 5, 6 domains in security. My favorite has always been governance, security tools, incident preparedness, risk management maturity, and compliance. So what I would do is those 5 areas, I would measure myself against those 5 areas. Now, you need to create a baseline on day 1. What you do now, during the course of your tenure, you start measuring yourself maybe monthly or quarterly and start sharing that. One of the companies I work for, they don't appreciate those, you know, some of the, you know, more cybersecurity terminologies. I presented a scorecard from 1 to 5, and with those 5, 6 domains. So I started showing them, hey, here is where we are today, 1.5. Our goal is 4. Hey, and by the way, our other competitors are probably in this range. Some of them will ask me, where did you get the data? Well, I kind of know someone there, or I did some online research, or maybe I went to BitSite or Security Scorecard or those third-party services that you can actually find a way to get some of those measurements. So it's really important to know your CEO. There are some CEOs that don't like to, you know, they just want to know, hey, I want to know what are the things that could, you know, get us in trouble. A lot of the CEOs are very focused on compliance. Now, I would really encourage you to, you don't have to turn your CEO into a cybersecurity professional. I think there is an opportunity for every one of us to sit down, have coffee, have lunch with our executive, with your CEO, and tell them, you know, do some, you know, lunch and learn with them. You know, I've done brown bag lunches with my executives. It was very nerve-wracking when I have 20 of my leadership in front of me and teaching them about cybersecurity. I think that's really the key is you have to introduce them to our world, but we have to define the right language so they could understand it. It's really teaching them. I would really encourage you to sit down, have a one-on-one, or join their board meeting. It is really interesting to be there. The first time I did that, I almost peed on my pants. I'm sorry for saying that, but it's really difficult. But it's gonna get better as you go on. And,
Thank you, Cecil. We have a follow-on question in that realm. In a critical infrastructure business, who has the power to accept the risk? The CISO, the executive suite, the board?
Well, that's a good question. It's really different across different organizations. Some organizations, you may have to go to the CEO. A lot of the CISOs that I know that I work with, including my previous roles, I have very little, I would say, visibility. I don't even have any authority. It will change. I think this session, the news, there is a time, I think maybe 5 years from now, when that role falls under the CISO, at least the security portion of the critical infrastructure. So, yeah, going back to the question, yeah, it's very difficult. It could be where I used to work, I have to go up to the CEO. The difficulty is whenever I go to the VP of that department, I always got shut down because remember, this is the problem with, I think over the long years, everyone is guilty, including myself. We've been always a no department. We always say no. We always say, no, you can't do this. I think we have to have a different perspective now. We're all in this together. We have to work together. Yesterday, I found an article that writing password is not bad. It's where you place those passwords, because the more you always use or forget your passwords, the more less secure you are. So I think what I'm trying to say is, it's changing the way we're doing things now. In the future, I think in 5 years from today, we will be more centralized. We will have the same mentality. Today, there's still that wall behind, between us.
Okay, thank you. Cecil, what agency or agencies do you think should have enforcement authority for critical infrastructure? NAST 882 provides guidance, and there are many titles in the Code of Federal Regulation that address cybersecurity for industrial control systems. So why no enforcement?
Yeah, I don't know. I cannot answer that, unfortunately. I can remember my discussion with the DHS guys, and I told these guys, hey, you need to start auditing, not assessing, not reviewing. Our politics is a very, I don't want to even go there. It's a, that's why, one of the reasons why in the private sector again, because it's easier, but again, I don't know if it's DHS, but someone like DHS should be, be a regulatory body rather than an oversight body.
Okay.
Yeah.
What percentage of companies you've worked for have had strong corporate governance in place that supported COVID, including IT risk and cybersecurity?
It's really different. If that's just in general, I would say between 30 to 40. I finished one recently. I did a security program assessment, and I was very surprised. With very limited manpower, limited resources, limited budget, they were able to do a lot of things. Again, generally, probably I would say 30 to 40% of the organization have really good corporate governance on cybersecurity.
Okay. Checking here. Any additional questions for Cecil? There is a general question here. Maybe you can just comment. As an identity management, if I'm working toward that position, what should I expect?
Well, that's really identity and access management space, actually very, really an important domain in a lot of companies. Now, not all companies they have an access management team. Most of the companies I see that they have dedicated identity and access management are Fortune 800, maybe Fortune 1000. That's an area that has a lot of challenges. That's an area that, you know, if I'm starting, that's probably an area I would go also. I'm not a very good pen tester. I tried my pen test skills 20 years ago. I wasn't good at it. Identity and access management, there's a lot of work there. The tools that are developed for that space are not plug and play. They require a lot of care and feeding. They a lot of configuration. Just developing role-based access control is not easy. You have to talk to different people, different managers. Hey, what's an analyst, financial analyst should have? Now, that's on the user side. Then there's, on the privileged access side, there's a lot of privileged access that are, we call standing access privilege. You know, they've been there. No one's been using them. I got a good story there if we have time. I got a person who worked at company X, and he went back after 6 years. 6 years. He went back and he said, hey, I'm almost retiring. I wanna, you know, work as a consultant for you because I know your environment. You know, he told me, by the way, Cecil, some of my old passwords are still there. Admin level passwords. So anyway.
I think we want to open this up to a wider audience, but just if you have any thoughts on where someone could find paid or free internships for shadowing on the weekends.
Weekends would be tough.
Yes. So Mo, just, you know, take a look at our LinkedIn page and maybe post that question there, and then our members can maybe help you with some opportunities.
Yeah. By the way, I do remember as a CISO asked me, this is about 4 weeks ago, they're looking for some interns and junior analysts. Can I send them to you?
Sure, yes, if you want to send them our way.
Yeah, I'll forward the email to you.
Okay. Can you talk about your approach to moving to the cloud and any lessons learned?
Well, I would say 5 years ago, 6 years ago, I used to work with this company, and the CIO made a really bold move to the cloud. This is really early, and today will be different, but I want to share this story quickly because we started moving there without really a plan in place. We didn't really understand what we really need to put in place. So I think today there's a ton of guidance online, a lot of consultants out there. There's a lot of tools today. I won't mention them, but there's 24 tools that can help you secure your environment. My quick answer to your question would be, when you're moving to the cloud, to get it more, less pain, easier migration, I think the first thing you have to do is develop a plan with security in mind. It is important that you have security in place. A few weeks ago, one of the IR incident response projects that I've handled was their cloud instance were infiltrated, and a lot of their data got stolen, and the shiny hunters send them an email and, hey, we got your data, by the way. And what is interesting, they knew that they had, some basic security controls that are AWS native tools that they turned on, but it wasn't enough. So I would say, don't rely on AWS native tools, guard duty, and those other things. I think you need to supplement them with other security tools before, make sure that it's part of your migration plan.
Okay, thank you so much, Cecil. That's all the questions we have time for today. So we'll move into our next portion and wrap up our program.
All right, thank you. So I'll take on those sharing responsibilities. Back from you, Cecil.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Cecil, for being our guest speaker today. We learned a lot about so much for risk management, and from a risk management perspective, a lot about quantifying and qualifying security risks, and also how to mitigate and what to pay for and what not to pay for, how to prioritize those messages and messaging to senior leadership. Being a cybersecurity strategy manager for a large corporation, I definitely could have used those tips or learned them the hard way myself. So thank you so much for that. If there is anything else that any of our members would like to add on to this wonderful talk from Cecil, we do encourage you to reach out to us. We have sponsors for the rest of the year, but as you see, we have the opportunity to empower our members to be special guests like Cecil did today. So thank you once again to Cecil and to CyberReason. CyberReason has been a multiple party sponsor to North Texas ISSA this year, and we can't tell you how much we appreciate the contributions. Speaking of contributions, last month's winners for the Lunch and Learn are listed here: Paul Smith, Nancy Free, Matt Jones. Matt Jones is listed twice, apparently. Brian Pence as well. Carrie, I apologize for that name. If you can kind of correct me and let me know who that fifth name is, then we'd like to announce them as well. If you fill out that survey, we do thank you tremendously. You, as an attendee, are automatically added as an entrant to the random prize drawing. So hopefully you will see your name come up next. Right now, if you have anything that you would like to announce as a member, any job opportunities, we did have that session with Cecil and ask him that question. So we open it up to the rest of the attendees. It looks like we have Raymond King. Carrie, could you open Raymond?
Yeah, I'm scrolling down to Raymond. It's not showing at the top of my list. So now, there you go. Raymond, you're allowed to talk.
Hey, sorry, I hit the button by accident.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay. So if there are no more members, new members, or students, again, I'd like to thank CyberReason. I'd like to thank Cecil. Again, your contributions and your attendance here is greatly appreciated. Be on the lookout for board nominations for the end of year event. We would like to have that in person if possible. So definitely chime in if you're interested when those announcements do come out. We have our annual conference that will be on November 6th. And I'd like to thank all of the sponsors who have gotten in early. There are a couple more sponsor seats with limited availability, but at different tiers. So we'd like to add you on as soon as possible. With that, thank you so much for being a cyber crime fighter, as I like to tell my children I am. And with that, we'll give you a few moments back. Thanks for joining.